Welcome to COASTER-net Uncut.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of COASTER-net Uncut. I am, of course, Andrew Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois, joined once again by my very good friend, my co-compatriot, my co-conspirator. Yes, he is the man, Danny Miller.
That's right. Coming to you from Binghamton, New York. It's hot. It's finally hot here in my apartment. The season is starting to heat up. We're in the spring now. The April showers are gone. Hopefully, we're starting to get some of the Mayflowers, and with the Mayflowers, we get roller coaster season. Some trips coming up for both you and I. In the coming weeks, I'm headed to Dorney Park in just a few days. Started off in Dollywood and then kind of had a little bit of a break here. So now really kicking off like 6 or 7 straight weeks of theme parks for me, starting with Dorney Park back home. Going to be hitting Carowinds in there. Some Holiday World and Kentucky Kingdom for both of us is in store coming up at the beginning of next month. We got Memorial Day weekend as well, so the season is basically here, and we're starting to get our new rides opening up. You were just at Cedar Point this past weekend, so to celebrate the roller coaster season, we are gonna go back to something that we did back in the off season and something that a lot of people really liked. Andy, we're gonna play another round of Roller Coaster Roulette.
Absolutely. Just the overwhelming response to this game, was just crazy. People loved it. So we figured let's go back to do it again. And for those of you who don't know how to play Roller Coaster Roulette, it's actually very simple. And it's something probably I know you do a lot on your off time. I do a lot on my off time. It's sit on RCDB and hit the homepage to get a new random roller coaster. And Danny, I can't tell you the number of hours I have spent hitting the refresh button to get a new roller coaster and to see what pops up. So tonight, we're going to hit that refresh button 10 times is what we're going to do. And we're going to talk about 10 different roller coasters. And maybe, just maybe, this bad boy, Valravn, will be one of them. I don't know. I don't know if you've had enough Valravn yet. I know we've been doing a ton of videos on Valravn over the last week or so, and you're probably sick of it at this point. But who knows? Maybe we can do a little bit more talk about Valravn tonight. We'll see. But let's go to RCDB and let's see what happens. Oh, Danny, you are going to like this one. It is Zippin Pippin. At Bay Beach Amusement Park in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Yes.
Now, funny.
Zippin Pippin, a fine roller coaster.
I live very close to this ride, and I've yet to be on it. You live much further away from this ride, and you managed to get a few laps on it. So, Danny, why don't you tell us a little bit about Zippin Pippin, also known as Elvis's favorite roller coaster, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that is correct. So the Zippin Pippin, the one we're talking about, obviously the one at Bay Beach Amusement Park in Green Bay, and it opened in 2011 and was kind of, it was built by Martin and Fleming's, which Gravity Group, they've done a lot of the Gravity Group rides. But it wasn't really designed by Gravity Group. It was, if you look on RCDB, it's credited to both the Gravity Group and John Miller. And the reason that is because the original Zippin Pippin was at Libertyland in Memphis, and that's part of why it was Elvis's favorite roller coaster, supposedly. Actually, the sign that is out in front of the current Zippin Pippin actually reads as follows. Maybe we'll put a picture up here, but you can see the Zippin Pippin was Elvis Presley's favorite ride. He actually rented Libertyland out on August 8th of 1977 from 1:15 until 7 a.m. and rode it over and over and over again. There was about 10 guests with him, and he rode it repeatedly during a 2-hour period, and this was actually his last public appearance before his death 8 days later on August 16th. So that's a neat little fact there, and the original ride was too deteriorated to really move and had been torn down. So, too much of it had been torn down. So rather than move it, they decided to just rebuild it with the same layout at Bay Beach, which is a tiny little park right there on Green Bay. It's their only roller coaster. Kind of has more of a carnival atmosphere to it, just out in like a little public park, a carousel, some picnic pavilions, very old school. And then the Zippin Pippin is kind of out off to the side. And it is a wonderful wooden roller coaster. Butter smooth. It's 5 years old now. We rode it back almost a month ago, in May of this past year, and an awesome roller coaster, tons of airtime, especially in the back seat. It has a great sort of weird figure eight at the beginning where it goes up the hill and then turns and then comes around and does a turnaround, and then it has an out and back from there. Simple layout, but a really nice layout. Lots of airtime. Like I said, very smooth. Some good speed to it. Some good laterals on the turnaround. The back seat is the place to be on the Zippin Pippin. And this is an interesting. It was a pay-per ride. And the way it was Sue and I, and the way that she likes to do those is, she'll ride it once. I bought, I think it was. I think it was $1 per ticket, and I bought a $5 strand, figuring that I would ride it a couple times. Sue bought one ticket, enough for one ride, and said, well, if I really like it, I'll buy more. And we rode it 3 or 4 times each. So sometimes the wood coasters can bang you around a little bit. You're not always a fan of the wood coasters, but this is one that you would definitely like. This was a really, really nice wooden roller coaster.
Well, for sure. It's one that I've always wanted to get to. I'm always trying to plot and plan ways Green Bay, it's a bit of, my problem is it's a bit of a hike.
Out of the way.
It's out of the way. It's a bit of a hike for just one ride, that's where my problem is. I'm almost in, I have been known in my life to go up there, into that area of Wisconsin. So I'm kind of just biding my time until the next time I'm in the area, and then maybe I'll just take an extra 2-hour trip instead of a 4-hour trip or a 5-hour trip. So I'm just I plan on getting there eventually, but maybe not in the short term. Maybe that's a long-term plan, but it's one that looks really exciting because I know you had pretty high marks for it. And one that does well in a lot of the polls as well. But let's go back to ours.
Well, and actually an interesting story about how we got to ride. We almost didn't ride this ride on that big post-graduation trip. We actually flew into Minneapolis on a Sunday or Saturday evening right after my graduation. And we knew we were going to do mall. We had Sunday and Monday, I believe it was, or maybe it was either Sunday and Monday or no, we did Mount Olympus on Tuesday. So we had Sunday and Monday in the Minneapolis area. And the plan was Sunday we were going to do Valley Fair and the Mall of America. And then Monday we would go back to Valley Fair if we needed to, and then would go, to Zippin Pippin on the way down to Mount Olympus. But there was bad rain in the forecast both days. And it looked a little better for Green Bay on Sunday, and a little bit better for Monday in Minneapolis. So we knew Mall of America we could do whenever because it's inside. So we said, let's risk it. Let's take the drive out to Green Bay on Sunday and start the trip with that and we drove 4 hours from Minneapolis to Green Bay, spent about an hour and a half riding the Zippin Pippin, and then 4 hours back and went to Valley Fair for a few hours to close out the night. So the fact that we drove 4.5 hours each way to spend 1 hour riding one roller coaster, and the fact that I'm sitting here talking as highly about it as I am right now, that tells you that it's a good ride. For me to tell you that was worth the trip in the rain too. It was drizzling when we rode it. That tells you a lot. Even coming from me, the wood coaster guy. So, little interesting story about that, but certainly glad that we took that risk, and certainly glad that we got to add that one onto our list. So, Zippin Pippin, 2 big thumbs up from Danny Miller and Elvis.
Okay, so our next one that I already clicked before you start going into that whole long speech there, it's actually one
Sorry
from.
about that.
That's okay. It's actually one from overseas in England. We have Saw the Ride at Thorpe Park.
Ah.
Now this one is a Eurofighter. And
yes, you're not a fan of those.
Not really. It's based on the acclaimed movie series, and it has a little bit of theming involved as well. So there's a little bit of theme as you go through it.
It reminds me of Mystery Mine without the big building over top of the big drop. That's kind of what it reminds me of.
Well, that's not. I don't know if I'd say that. Looking at the layout,
Well, at least the big drop does.
Yeah, the big drop
like
definitely.
There's a bit more coaster. It looks like there's a bit more coaster aspect to this one.
Yeah,
whereas
for
Mystery Mine
sure.
has more of a dark ride feel.
You have a few airtime hills here. It's a little bit more, and my problem with Mystery Mine is it just goes so slow through the layout. Now, in comparison, I am not a Mystery Mine fan. However, I am a SpongeBob fan. I really enjoyed the hell out of SpongeBob.
Oh, yes. You like SpongeBob.
I really do. And this one gives me more of that SpongeBob feel with a little bit of added theming to it, where you got the saw blades going on. And I just get I get more of a coaster feel to this than whereas Mystery Mine, I almost classify it more as a dark ride than a roller coaster. The coaster elements on it are few and far between in my book. But this one looks pretty interesting. Now, I'm not, like I said before, I'm not a huge fan of the Eurofighters. But there's different models of Eurofighter too. And they're so different, that you have something like Daredevil Dive down at over Georgia that has such a completely different car design.
That's all coaster.
Yeah, and the car design is so different that you maneuver those, you go through those maneuvers a lot differently. This one is using your standard Eurofighter, 4 across, kind of wider
Shoulder
stance.
harness.
But like I said, SpongeBob was a pretty good ride too. Nothing that's breaking my top 50 list, but definitely a fun ride to go on that I have a good time while riding. This one looks like it could be up to that level as well. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I prefer Mystery Mine to SpongeBob. I like the theming aspect. I like the dark ride aspect to it. I think if you're prepared for a little bit of the jiggliness that you get on the Eurofighters, it's not as bad. So I think if you were to enter Saw the Ride with that same sort of mentality and be like, okay, well, we know it's not going to be the smoothest ride, I'll keep my head back so that I don't bang my head around, then I think you would enjoy it. But it does have more of a coaster feel like a SpongeBob does, or like, we're seeing videos come out of the Monster at Adventureland out in Iowa, out in your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
This kind of has that sort of feel to it a little bit. This looks like a cool ride. I love the saw blades at the bottom of the drop. And I'd be interested to see if it looks like there's an outdoor queue, but it also looks like there might be parts of an indoor queue as well. So I'd be interested to see if there's, I'm interested in seeing what kind of theming they have outside of just the coaster itself, to see if they maybe have some more Saw theming prior to the ride, because I enjoy the Saw movies. They're not some of my favorites. I think they're entertaining to a certain extent, but certainly not one of my favorites. Kind of one of those. Yeah, I've seen them, but I have no desire to watch them again.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think you would never see something like this in the States, where it's like legitimately themed to some sort of horror murder movie. I mean, I don't think aside from like a Halloween Horror Nights where you have like specific Halloween haunts meant to scare people, I don't think you would ever see an everyday roller coaster themed to something like this in the States as much as you would over in jolly old England there. I mean, I know that that's much more passable over there than it is over here nowadays.
Yeah,
it's an interesting ride.
Interesting ride for sure. Okay, let's go back to RCDB here, and let me click one. Oh, and this is one that is not super interesting, but maybe one of the most iconic photographs of a single element on any ride. This is the... No, I'm not even going to get into that tonight. This is Diving Coaster Vanish at Yokohama Cosmo World over in Japan.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I see where you're going with that now.
This is one that you see photographed everywhere. People are like, where does the coaster go? It dives into the lake. This is the one that people point to.
This is the one you see on the memes.
Yes.
Where it's like, would you ride this roller coaster? And it shows the picture of it diving into the water and just like, okay, yeah. And it goes around that big Ferris wheel with the clock on it, and it like doesn't look cool. Like it doesn't look safe.
You know, what's funny is there's not a lot going on with this roller coaster. It's 115 feet high.
Really
it's got a little helix there. At the end, but besides that drop into the water, it's not really all that
just kind of
fascinating.
Meanders around a little bit.
Yeah, there's not much going on there, but once again, it's kind of cool because it dives into the water and it has little spray jets that spray the water out. This is one that I think would be cool to ride.
It's got the Manta effect, anyways. Is what you're saying.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And it's got tunnel lights. And the tunnel there, once you go in, it's got like flashing lights inside the tunnel, which are kind of disorienting. So that's kind of cool.
And this is one that I think it would be fun to ride, to simply say that you've ridden it and you'd be like, yeah, I've been on that. Like,
right.
It's not made by anyone.
Like, yeah, I know where that one is.
Yeah. Well, geez, Louise, this company's made 60 roller coasters. That really surprises me.
They're probably all in Japan. Senyo Kagyo or whatever.
Yeah. They have a lot of different.
Half of them are called Atomic Coaster.
Well, there are quite a few.
Jet Coaster, of course.
Jet Coaster. That's
Coaster, because...
Yeah, that's another one. Interesting. But yeah, this is what you get sometimes when you play roller coaster roulette on RCTV. Definitely. So I don't think there's not much more to say here about that. So let's go back onto our.
No, it's on the bucket list though.
Definitely, sure. Like Japan's one of those places that I really want to get to. If not just for the fact that I want to ride Thunder Dolphin, which is another epic name for a roller coaster. But I just think that there's a lot of stuff from Japan that's fun to ride, and would be really, really exciting to go there. But let's go to the next one. Oh, Danny Miller. This is you've been talking up Dorney for the last however many minutes here. You've been talking about Dorney, how you're going to go there, but we got a Dorney coaster finally. That is, for as much as you go to Dorney Park, we really don't talk about Dorney Park a lot on this show.
No, we don't talk nearly enough about it.
No, and this might arguably be the best coaster in their collection. What would you say I'm saying here? You're going to say Talon, aren't you?
Well, see, from my point of view, I would say Talon. But I think the big argument, I think most people at Dorney Park, between the best coasters, you're talking either Talon or Steel Force.
Well, it is indeed Steel Force on this list. So Steel Force is our next topic. Now, Danny, I know you're intricately and intimately involved with Steel Force, so why don't you tell us a little bit about Steel Force. Steel Force also, I should add, though, I don't even think you know this. Steel Force is actually my sister's, Ride Warrior Stephanie. It is her 200th roller coaster is in fact Steel Force at Dorney Park.
Ah.
Yeah. So there you go.
With a height of 200 feet. That's very appropriate.
Very appropriate, isn't it? A hyper coaster for a hyper milestone.
Yes, that's very good. So, if a little fun fact about Steel Force, a lot of people know this. At least a lot of your hardcore people will know this. The Steel Force logo is actually very similar to the original logo for the first Banshee that eventually became Mantis. It was recycled and altered a little bit. Oh, look at what he's pointing to. He's got his little steel.
Original Banshee. Well, I call him Original Banshee. I don't call him Steel Force. He's Original Banshee.
Right, so he's the little Steel Force Grim Reaper guy there. So they basically recycled that the next year, and with the Steel Force logo, 200 feet tall, 205-foot drop, Morgan Manufacturing. The second of the Morgan Manufacturing triplets, the Cedar Fair triplets, Wild Thing was 1996 at Valley Fair. Then we got Steel Force here at Dorney. And then in 1998, we got Mamba there at Worlds of Fun. Now, in my expert opinion, I would say that Steel Force is the best of those three by a pretty considerable margin. I think the airtime on the out leg is pretty good. The turnaround is the best of the three. You don't get airtime on the other two on the turnaround, whereas on Steel Force there is a little bit of an airtime hill before the turnaround. I think it's got the longest turnaround. And then the return run is really, really nice, especially kind of taking a page out of the Magnum XL 200 playbook. Yeah. Car 1, row 3, that ejector seat, I think is really the place to be on Steel Force and the other Morgan hypercoasters too, I would say. The first drop in the back seat is certainly one of those take your breath away moments. But it's glass smooth. Just got repainted a couple years ago. It looks great. Great view of the park and the surrounding area from the top. You get a nice slow climb up to the top as well. But one of those rides that I always say Talon is my favorite. Sentimentally, I think if I didn't have a sentimental attachment to Talon, I would probably think Steel Force might be the better coaster. But they're right next to each other on my list. I think Talon and Steel Force certainly a wonderful 1-2 punch to have. 10 minutes down the road from where my parents live, and they're right outside of Allentown. So certainly not a bad, and you got a good collection at Dorney overall, but not a bad collection to have as your home collection, considering that there's never any lines there. So to have a good B&M invert and a good hypercoaster in my backyard, certainly nothing to complain about for me.
Yeah,
and Steel Force, one of the few rides that I've been stuck on. Really?
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, when I was in high school, I was stuck on the lift hill for quite a long time with a group of friends, years and years ago. I've actually been stuck on Raptor and Manta as well. I've been stuck on both. I was stuck on the Raptor lift hill, and I was also stuck on the Manta brake run once.
When you say this, do you say this? You were stuck on it for like how long? 20 minutes? 30 minutes? 2 minutes?
No, Steel Force was probably like we were sitting on the lift for like 10 or 15 minutes. Maybe about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Raptor was shorter. Raptor was maybe about 5 minutes. The Manta brake run was maybe 10 minutes as well, too.
Really?
We didn't get evac'd. It wasn't to that point, but it was long enough that, you started to think about, it was more than a routine like, oh, hey, put your camera away. It was something a little more than that.
Well, I've only been evac'd once, and that was on Gemini during Coasting for Kids one year. We got evac'd right off the brake run, though. So it's just like you just step out of the car and walk 10 feet. So it wasn't all that exciting. And then the only other notable story I really have is when I had to be physically cut out of Excalibur at Valley Fair.
Yeah, you told this story.
Because the seatbelt actually got stuck inside the seatbelt, connector piece, and it would not come undone. 3 people tried to get it undone, and it would not come undone, and they had to call maintenance. And the funny part of it is the ride ops are like, well, you're stuck in the seat, so you're safe. Do you want to just sit here or you want to keep riding? And I'm like, let's keep riding. So as I'm stuck in the seat, we just kept cycling until the maintenance guys got there and cut me out. And we got a few pictures of the
Accelerator's
belts.
a fine roller coaster. No complaints about that, right?
Oh, I love it. When they start talking about removing...
Did I say accelerator?
I think you did. When they talked about removing that ride, I'm like, you guys are insane. That is not a ride you should remove at all. But whatever.
No.
So let's see what our next coaster is. Oh,
like how we got to Excalibur and Valley Fair.
Exactly. It's amazing how we talk here.
There's another Morgan hypercoaster in that park, so
which is not notable at all. Not notable whatsoever.
Oh, stop it.
Oh, I don't like Wild Thing at all.
Wild Thing. Yeah, Wild Thing I can take or leave. Mamba's the worst of the 3, though. I know you like Mamba, but I think Mamba's
Stop. Mamba's light years ahead of at least Wild Thing. I kind of put Mamba and Steel Force fairly in the same, mostly in the same boat. I like Mamba's turnarounds.
I think Mamba and Wild Thing are comparable, and I think Steel Force is ahead of the 2 of those.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
But again, maybe I'm biased.
Yeah, I think you are, as always. So the next one we have, and I apologize right up front here. It's actually Montaña Rusa, which you're like, oh, well, which one? Well, let me tell you. Yeah, which one? Because there's about 1 million of them. It's at La Feria, Chapultepec in Chapultepec. And
too many roller coasters are named Montaña Rusa to display on one page. Hold on.
Yeah,
I gotta go find it.
There you go.
The Mobius wooden coaster one.
This is the Mobius wooden coaster one. Now, this one is a pretty this park here is pretty interesting in general. La Feria. And it has a few pretty interesting...
4,000 feet long on each side?
Yeah, this thing's massive. This is a massive wood coaster. Yeah, this thing is huge. And like you said, it's Mobius, which means that they switch in the station.
Gotta ride both sides to get the credit.
You do not. You do not. You do not. This one's really interesting. That Mobius coasters are really fascinating how they end up, on opposite sides of the station, regardless. But this one is really big. How big is the Kennywood one in comparison to this? Because this one...
Oh, geez, that one's like maybe like 70 feet or so. That one's tiny.
This one's 70 feet. Yeah, it is a little bit longer, though. It's 4,500 feet. So this one's got a little bit of height on it, being at 110 feet, an 80-foot drop. And a length of 4,000, so a little bit shorter, but a little bit taller.
No. I think the Kennywood one, that's the combined length of 4,500 feet. That's the combined length of the Kennywood one.
Oh, you think so?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, it's RCDB does not distinguish, apparently.
But he has a note in the Montaña Rusa. He has a note in the Montaña Rusa one that its total length is 8,000 feet. He makes that distinction.
Okay, so this one is not only taller but significantly larger as well. This is a reason to go to Mexico City. If you're not sold on, let's say, Medusa or Superman or any of the other stuff at Six Flags, this is a unique roller coaster that looks like it could be a lot of fun. Now, I don't know how this thing's been kept up over the years. If it's rough, if it jackhammers, but I'll tell you what, it looks really interesting.
Weird too.
It reminds me a little bit of American Eagle in some respects.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. It's even got like the paint job to swap out the blue for the green, and
yeah.
it's like you kind of have American Eagle there.
Yeah.
Wow.
This one,
or like a Colossus.
Yeah, that too. Me and you have both discussed maybe going to Mexico in the next few years, and this was one of the parks that was definitely on our list to do, just because it looks so interesting. Not only this, but they have some other nice. They have a Schwarzkopf there, which, come on, those are always fun.
We talked about the super badass logo of their shuttle loop.
Oh, yeah.
The Cascabel 2.0.
Yes. Oh, my God. The logo on that one is so cool. This is such an interesting park.
And the train is painted like a snake.
Yeah. This is such an interesting park. Like, you have a Mobius. If you want to talk about unique coaster collections, you've got a Mobius wood coaster that's massive. You got a Schwarzkopf shuttle loop with an awesome logo. You also have another Schwarzkopf that reminds me a lot of a triple loop. That reminds me a lot of Silver Bullet out at Frontier City. Maybe a little bit more so than that. It's kind of a mini
version of Olympia Looping.
Yeah, this park's got some good stuff there. This is definitely a park, and then you got a Wild Mouse. To round out the mix.
But you've got a topspin, you've got a nice log flume, you've got a whip, you've got a drop tower, you've got like the flying falcon thing that they have at Hershey Park. You have a paratrooper. You've got some decent looking stuff. You've got this weird spaceship looking thing. It looks like something out of Roller Coaster Tycoon, like this spaceship-looking simulator. You've got a Music Express. You got some good stuff at this park.
Wait, what is this spaceship-looking thing? It looks like a roller coaster to me.
Yeah.
How? No, wait. The picture before
it looks
that.
Like a simulator or something.
The picture before that picture.
That
looks
like some sort of powered, like a train.
Yeah,
I think it's
like a roller coaster. Looks like a roller coaster to me.
It looks like sort of like you know how at Camp Snoopy you have like the little trains, the train that goes around. It kind of looks like that. Yeah. It's just they didn't want to bolt it to the ground. They just put it up on some wood blocks to elevate it a little.
This park looks like it's a lot of fun. So definitely, I think when we go down there that this is a place we're going to have to visit. There's just too much going on here that looks like fun. But anyway, let's keep this tour moving here. So our next one,
to number 5.
Number 5, halfway home already, and it is Cannonball at Lake Winnie. Cannonball. Now.
Okay. Now this is one that you rode.
This is one that I rode, and I'm going to have to really remember.
Okay, so this one, when I first look at it, this one reminds me a lot of Thunderhawk at Dorney. It reminds me of that ride a little bit.
I could see that.
Out and back.
You know what? I'll be honest with you. I really enjoyed Thunderhawk at Dorney when I rode it. And I know a lot of people don't enjoy Thunderhawk, but I really enjoyed that ride for some reason. Cannonball was a little bit forgettable to me. I felt it was a little rough. I only rode it once or twice when we were there. This Lake Winnie was a pretty quick stopover on my big, as I called it, the Anaconda plan last year, where we basically started and cut through the South like Sherman marched to the sea. I ended up in Richmond on that trip, so of course it was the Anaconda plan. But this was one of the short little stops we made. With Rampage.
Is that the trip you rode Fury and Intimidator
in the same
trip, or was that
Excuse me, Danny. Within 12 hours of each other, we rode Intimidator and Fury.
Okay.
Yeah, let's
I'm
come
terribly
on,
sorry.
come on. Let's make impressive statements sound impressive instead of just like, oh, was that the same trip? No, it's within the same 12-hour period, Danny Miller, that we rode those two rides at least 10 times each. Anyway, back to Cannonball. Cannonball, I don't recall if it was very rough. To me, it was a little bit forgettable. I don't really recall all that much about it, so it's kind of like one of those things where, it's a wood coaster. I'm not a wood coaster fan. You might have a little bit different perspective on it. Should you go out to Lake Winnie? But for me, not so much going on there. So do you want to move on to the next one here?
Yeah, let's move on to the next one. I might have to try and make a trip down to Alabama Adventure and throw in Lake Winnie at some point.
Yeah, it's definitely a park you should get to, at some point. So the next one is let me look. Hit the refresh button here, and it is Roller Coaster. Uh-oh. Well, that I don't know where that's gonna. Yeah.
All right, hold on. Am I gonna? Let's see here.
Anything? Nothing. No.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of some parks I'm gonna go to or that I have been to. The only roller coaster that I can think of really, Thunderhawk used to be called the Coaster. I know there's one.
Peony Playland.
Geez, I know there's. Yeah. Peony. Well, that one's just called Coaster too. It's not called Roller Coaster, right? So I know. Well, I'm going to Lagoon in June, so I know there's one out there, and you're giving me.
I think you are correct in that. It is the one in Lagoon. This is a roller coaster out there at Lagoon in Farmington, Utah. So now this is one that I don't – when I was looking at Lagoon, this is not one that I really spent a lot of time looking at. I know you already have your trip planned out to Lagoon. I'm also planning a trip myself out to Lagoon possibly. Now this one, it looks like your standard wood coaster. It's a little bit older. It's 1921 this was built in, so you're talking about classic John Miller. So this, what are your thoughts on Roller Coaster here?
I've heard some good things about it. I've heard that it's got some airtime, not a ton. It's what you would kind of expect out of an old 1920s coaster. I think it's actually appropriate that we kind of got this one right after we got the Cannonball at Lake Winnie, because I think you could probably draw some similarities between the two. Now, this is more of a double out and back. The Cannonball is just an out and back. 60 feet tall, 45 miles per hour, nothing earth-shattering. It is an Ace roller coaster landmark. It was originally named the Lagoon Dipper or the Pippin Dips, and then was later called the Giant Coaster. It was constructed at a cost of $75,000 and opened at the end of May in 1921. $75,000! You could buy a roller coaster back then. How awesome is that? But no, it looks like your normal, standard, classic 1920s double out and back roller coaster. It kind of has that old school feel. So, and you know what? On that trip, we're also hitting up Elitch Gardens and Lakeside. So between the Twister 2, the Lakeside Cyclone, and then this one, we're going to get a couple of your, classic wood coat. Maybe not Twister 2 so much, but, with the Lakeside Cyclone and this one, we're going to get some classic wood coaster fare on that trip. So this is certainly one I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, and an interesting story about this, that they have a sign posted on it that says that the coaster is white, but slowly it's becoming brown. that they said that back in 1921 they would paint the coaster white in order to protect the wood, but because now they have pre-treated lumber,
Correct.
that they are now switching it over to a more classic brown color, where they're not painting the wood. So I find it interesting that they specified that it looks to be in the newer pictures it's mostly brown now, whereas they do have some classic pictures in RCDB of it being in that classic white. But that's an interesting. I did not.
So, Yeah. So a little bit of background on that. In my last semester in school, I did take a wood timber structures course, and nowadays all your wood coasters are built with pressure treated southern yellow pine. And back in the 20s, it wasn't always pine. A lot of the time, you would build with Douglas fir, but it wasn't pressure treated or anything like that. So in order to protect it from the elements, they would paint the coasters, which is why a lot of your older coasters, even like in the 70s and 80s, like Blue Streak, and built in the 60s, was painted blue. A lot of your old classic coasters, like your Thunderhawks, your Cannonballs, your roller coasters, were painted like a white or maybe an off-white because they looked really nice. Rebel Yell, Racer, even the Kennywood Racer is painted a nice deep crimson red color. The Jackrabbit and the Thunderbolt are painted as well. And it kind of acted as a way to protect the ride from the elements in the off-season and rain. But now with the pressure-treated southern yellow pine, there's no need to paint the rides because, the lumber itself is built to withstand the elements. And it's easier to maintain when it's not painted, so they've kind of come out right up front and said, to help our maintenance staff, we're not painting the parts of the ride that we're replacing, so parts of it are brown, parts of it are still white, and that's just kind of how it is. And it looks kind of cool, and it's kind of nice because it shows you that they're maintaining it and they're taking care of it, but at the same time, it still kind of has that classic feel. So
yeah. Absolutely. So that's a cool little story there. So let's move on to our next coaster, and let's hit the refresh button. Oh, whoa! Now this one is over in Asia again. I'm not going to make you guess because there's a lot of Asian coasters nowadays, but it is
the jet coaster.
No, the Dino Conda, which is one of those beautiful S&S fourth dimension coasters out at the Dinosaur Park. Yes. Oh my goodness. This one, dude.
China.
I don't know why there's only a handful of these types of coasters out there. That we have X2 in America, you have Ikanika out in Japan, and you got this one, Dinoconda, out in China. And this one
got dinosaurs around it and some cool theming, dude.
Exactly. What more do you want? You got one of the best coaster types ever created. Plus, you have dinosaurs all over the place. What more do you want in life besides Dinoconda? Now, in this one, the cars are so cool. They got those original X cars on them. Obviously, without the music on it and all that, but man, this thing is so cool. You know what? I really would love to ride another one of these. Just because, why is there a clown?
Contrast a little bit.
Oh, why is there a clown outside the front of this entrance?
Yeah. He's just clowning around.
Yeah, why?
That's a little questionable.
Why? Oh my God. Why? Oh my goodness.
That first turn is kind of like X2, but it's really weirdly shaped. Like it kind of has a flat spot in it. Like what? Oh my God! Look at that nighttime picture. Look at that head chopper on the first drop.
That's insanity right there.
That looks dangerous. That looks dangerous.
Oh. Plus this one's got some. This one's got some real theming on the inside of the station too. Like X2 is like just basically a hangar. This one's got some
box.
Yeah, pretty much. This one's got some character to it all over the place.
Wow.
This one is one.
I didn't realize how well themed this one was.
Yeah, look at this thing. I don't know if it's themed to a snake or it's a dinosaurs, but it's something.
Well, I think it's at the dinosaur park, but it's supposed to be Anaconda, so they kind of put the two together and got Dinoconda. It's a dinosaur that was once a snake, or it's a snake-like dinosaur, I guess, because they have the little snake guy inside the station.
Yeah,
so I'm
exactly.
thinking it's some sort of primitive snake-like dinosaur that
Oh my God,
maybe it's just lost in the translation.
This thing is so cool.
This is cool. This one's cool.
Dinoconda is definitely one that is one that I want to ride. Because I love that.
Absolutely.
I love the this style of ride, and to have this theme on
dinosaurs too.
And I love dinosaurs. What speaking of, what else is at this park? Is there anything else interesting? Not really. There's not much. There's a moto coaster, and then there's a golden horse,
Dinosaur.
wild mouse. Yeah, so there's really not much else at this coaster. Yeah, there's a company for you right there.
Ripping off American and European countries since way too long. I believe this one looks like the Reverchon wild mouse model that they ripped off on this one. Oh no, it's a little different. Looks like maybe they ripped off his Zamperla model. Whirling dinosaur car is the English translation. The whirling dinosaur car is the translation on that one.
Okay, let's move on from Dinoconda and let's move on to our next one. So let's hit that refresh button again. Oh, now we're going to have some fans that are very happy to see this. Some Arizona fans, some Phoenix, Arizona fans who we don't really talk a lot about roller coasters out in.
Not many Arizona coasters.
There are not. This one is Desert Storm. Desert Storm, which we have a few really great pictures of. One of them made the calendar a few years back. And this one looks like a really interesting ride. It's a Hopkins ride coaster. Not a lot of those around the world.
Better known for their log flumes.
Yes.
Better known for their log flumes.
But they have a roller coaster. And this one, I think one of the coolest parts of this one is the paint job on one of the two trains. They have a nice, I don't know if it's a new paint job or an old paint job, but they have
lightning bolts,
and it's literally a desert storm coming in, that sandstorm with the lightning bolts coming out of it. A really cool paint job. What do you think about this ride? Do you think this is some fun here, or what do you think?
Those Hopkins coasters, you never know what to expect. They can be a little jittery from what I understand, but this one doesn't look like it has the shoulder harnesses. It looks like it just has the lap bars, which is kind of cool. Yeah. It's got two inversions. It's got sort of your standard vertical loop, and then it's kind of got like a half loop, and then it's not quite a sidewinder where it rolls out like a corkscrew. It's kind of a loop, but then when it comes back out, it kind of like twists off to the side, so it's not quite a loop, but it's not quite a sidewinder loop. On RCDB, picture 5 out of 9 is a real good picture of it, where it kind of twists out to the side a little bit, and maybe it's a good thing that there's no shoulder harnesses. That looks like that transition could be a little odd. But this ride sort of, to me, reminds me of like a laser at Dorney Park. Okay. Simple, a drop, 2 loops, not back to back, but 2 loops, and then, a couple of turns here and there, some track going through the loop. That's always kind of interesting to see. You don't always see that. So, it looks like a fun little ride. I guess the shame of it is there's not a whole lot else down there in Arizona to really draw you down to possibly ride this one. So it's kind of like, when am I gonna ride this one? They have a kiddie coaster, and then they have Desert Storm. And if I click on parks nearby, and this one's in Phoenix, you have a couple of small family entertainment centers. It looks like that have one coaster, but then the next closest thing to this park that's not really a family entertainment center is all the stuff in Las Vegas, which is 250 miles away. Yeah. So, unless you're kind of I think the way that you would go to this park is if you're going to California or like a Las Vegas and you had a layover in Phoenix, and you could schedule your layover to be like 8 hours, and then you could just quick run out of the airport, run down to the park, ride the rides. You know what? I'm starting to convince myself that I'm going to have to do that next time I go out west to get those 2 coasters there.
That's true.
Out there. But that's doable. I mean, you fly out in the morning, land into Phoenix, or late morning, early afternoon, take 5 or 6 hours, run down to the park, get your rides, grab some food, and then fly out, to Los Angeles or San Francisco for the night, and then begin your West Coast trip. You could do that.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on to the last one here. You're always planning. That you're always plotting and planning something. Always.
Thinking.
So the last one on our roller coaster roulette game tonight is, you're gonna love this. This is one. It's Helix at Liseberg.
Brian Bass. You know what? Speaking of which, congratulations to Brian Bass and his wife Abby on the birth of their daughter this past week. So if Brian is awake and not taking care of the baby and is watching this episode, he might be just as excited as when his daughter was born to see that we are talking about Helix here tonight on the show.
Oh, my God.
Because he absolutely loves this ride. We were talking about it the other night. He messaged me, and we were talking about the new Incredible Hulk trains, and I was like, it just reminded me of Helix.
Yeah, seriously, don't they? This ride looks out of this world amazing. Now, a lot of people have been asking for Mac.
People talk about Blue Fire.
Yeah.
This ride looks better.
And people want Mac in America. Like, we're waiting on this. We really, like, this is something we want to see happen. We want to see Mac in America, and it's just a matter of time that we saw it with Manta. Mm-hmm. We see it a little bit, with the new Cobra's Curse, but we haven't seen a big project like this.
No, we really haven't. And I think the closest we've seen to something like this from Mac in the United States is Manta down at SeaWorld San Diego. But that one is relatively small compared to stuff like this in Blue Fire. I mean, if you're on our CDB following along with us, take a look at picture 19 of 22. And it's a nice aerial picture that shows how this entire ride is on the side of a freaking mountain, and just how awesome this ride and just how much space this ride takes up. Double launch, and you drop out of the station right into a corkscrew and then a sweeping left-hand turn right into the first launch. And it's like, it looks like there's some awesome airtime moments. You have these crazy loops. You have a nice little barrel roll right at the end. I mean, this ride looks like it packs a punch start to finish. And it's like, I wonder when we're going to see something big like this in the U.S. from Mock Rides, because it's got to happen at some point, right? Someone's got to take a chance, and I'm thinking it's going to be a Busch Park. They're like the only ones really recently. I mean, like Adventureland on Long Island just built one of their spinning coasters, but it was a small one. Who's going to be the one to take a chance on Mock Rides?
I don't know. You would think a company, Busch is working with them a little bit with SeaWorld. You wonder if they're going to be the ones. A lot of people were speculating that maybe Mako would have been Mock, but it wasn't. It was B&M. You just wonder who's going to take that big jump, and if the company even wants to take that big jump. Do they? You would think they would want to, right? Why wouldn't you want something like Blue Fire over in America, or Helix somewhere here? That this ride looks even more spectacular at night with the night lights, with the way that they flash, and it just looks amazing. So it's just a matter of time, I think. Eventually we'll get one. And maybe it'll be Cedar Fair, because Cedar Fair, I feel that Cedar Fair has moved to the end of their line with B&M. That I don't, after having ridden Valraven, I don't see Cedar Point installing another B&M coaster in their park. So what other companies are out there? There's RMC, there's GCI, but at some point, if you want another steel coaster, maybe Mox, maybe that's the answer here. I don't know.
And let's think about this here. Cedar Point, I don't think you would ever see it at Cedar Point because they got Maverick. I think you're talking about being too similar to a Maverick there, and maybe not even a Kings Island because they're so close. But like, what I've always noticed every time I go to this park and I say, you know what, this park has a lot of great stuff to offer, but they don't have a launch coaster, is Carowinds.
Yeah.
Carowinds is the one big park. I mean, Kings Island has a couple of them. Kings Dominion has a couple of them. One of the biggest park that I can think of off the top of my head that does not have a launch coaster is Carowinds. And the way Cedar Fair is investing into them, don't you think that would be a really, really good opportunity as a good follow-up to Fury? It's not similar to Fury, and you could. It's just something completely different, and it's different for that region too, because there's not a whole lot of stuff around Carowinds there. I mean, the closest theme park, you're talking about 4 hours to Dollywood, 4.5 maybe to Six Flags Over Georgia. So I mean, you're really looking at, you could really this over a large area if you were to put something like Helix into a park like Carowinds.
Yeah, I think a Helix would fit very well there. And it's just like you have Williamsburg close by. It's a little close. It's still a hike and a half, though. You can do it in a day.
Yeah.
But it's just overall. You want to see. I think Carowinds is big enough to hold a collection on its own, and something like that would fit very nicely into their overall coaster collection. Which outside of Fury and I-232, you have those two are really nice high end coasters, but then there's a drop off after that, and this type of ride, a Helix type ride, would really shore up that gap between your top tier coasters and your bottom coasters there. Afterburn is kind of in that zone, but after Afterburn, what else is even at Carowinds? There's not a lot people talk about.
I think I think you're looking at Fury, Intimidator, Afterburn. And then after that, depending on how you feel about Nighthawk, depending on how you feel about Vortex, but it's really 3 coasters. And you look at Volcano, Dominator, and Intimidator 305. And then at King Island, you have Banshee, Beast, and Diamondback. And then at Canada's Wonderland, you have Leviathan, Behemoth, and then I guess Guardian is your next one. But Cedar Point, when you look at Cedar Point, you're Millennium Force, Maverick, Dragster, Magnum, Raptor, Gatekeeper, now Valraven. I mean, you got Rougarou even. You're 7 or 8 coasters deep that would be probably would be in that top 3 or top 4 at a Cedar Point. So I think if you added a coaster like Helix to a park like Carowinds, that would be a legitimate contender to say, okay, you know what, that's now the second best collection in the chain, which I think would be a big deal. And I think it would definitively make Carowinds the best coaster collection in that region, because right now I think I might give it to Six Flags Over Georgia. I think they've maybe got a little bit more, Bender, Georgia Cyclone, the Batmans, the Supermans. I think they maybe have, if you had something like Helix in the States down at Carowinds, I think you could make a legitimate argument that they have the best collection, in the Southeast. Not talking about Florida for a minute. Forget Florida for a minute. But I don't know. It's Helix. Certainly, I think if I were to make a top 5 rides that I want to ride that I haven't been on, I think Helix is probably on that list with like a Nemesis and Expedition G-Force. I think Helix might be number 3 on that list.
Yeah, absolutely. Helix is very top on my list. That's one of the ones that when I saw the first previews of that with the concept art, like I went crazy over it. And then they released the train images, and I went more crazy over it. And it just looks. Music. Yeah, the whole thing just looks like to be an amazing experience. And Liseberg, one of those parks that, definitely I want to get out to at some point. But before we go here tonight. Oh, well, yeah, don't we all? Don't we all? But before we leave here this evening, we do want to announce that the COASTER-net Uncut picture calendar contest is returning this year.
Yes.
So as you're heading out to parks and taking all those great photographs, keep us in mind because we are holding a calendar contest once again this year. Last year was won by Sam Natcher with his beautiful picture of Fury in July, or what we titled Fury in July. But you can submit your photos. Now, the tough part is that we will require all submissions at the beginning of July. So I know your coaster writing season is far from over at that point, but it's important that for us to get the calendar done by the time that it needs to be done, that those things have to be in by the beginning of July. So look through your pictures from last year that we said we warned you this was going to happen. We said you need to get your pictures and save them from year to year, and hopefully we can get a whole bunch more submissions this year. We haven't really come up with prizes just yet. You'll definitely be in the calendar. You'll be published. You'll get a free calendar on top of that. And we might throw in like a t-shirt and stuff as well, for our winners. And, we always say that there will definitely be one winner, but that doesn't mean to say that there won't be more than one winner. That there is a good possibility that we might select more than one photo. Last year it was just one photo, but we reserve the opportunity that if we really love your photos, to put them into this calendar. So, tons of fun. If you want to get started, please start submitting them. We'll be opening up that we'll have a Google Drive set up where you could submit your photos for consideration, if you will. Well, as always, thank you for joining us here on COASTER-net Uncut. I am, of course, Andrew Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois.
And I am Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York.
And as always, Ride on, Ride Warriors.
See you next time, folks.